Good morning and good afternoon. Welcome to another episode of Before Coffee. It is Mucking Fun Day. Did you have a good weekend? Were you left blissfully ignorant of everything that was happening? Well, don't worry. We have some news updates for you here today on Before Coffee, the father and daughter comprehensive news of Planet Earth podcast, where we look up our news stories 10 to 15 minutes before we started, and we haven't had any caffeine. That's right, it's a caffeine-less podcast, talk show, reading the news. So let's get into these headlines and see what we're talking about today. Today on Before Coffee, rejoining EU is Scotland's best hope, John Swinney says. Dutch State Commission has said the government must improve approach to discrimination or have troubles ahead.
And this is Roger for the United States. Millions across the U.S. brace for plummeting temperatures and winter storms.
Great news! Israel frees 90 Palestinian women and minors from prison on day 2 of the Gaza ceasefire that happened over the weekend.
And not so good news. At least 80 people are killed in northeast Colombia as peace talks fail.
In our culture news, the gig economy. Ticket inflation is getting worse. So where does all that money go?
And it's National Disc Jockey Day. That's right. And it's National Cheese Lovers Day on January 20th, 2025 on Before Coffee.
It is Monday, and what's best for Mondays but making mistakes? Hello, everyone. Moon TV, Bell, and Sunni non-videos. Hello, how are you doing, Gay? And also, I see you, Rake. It's Rake. I see you as well in chat. Welcome to the father and daughter news show, where we're going to cover some news stories like Scotland's. Now, this is something very close to my heart. I do believe Scotland needs to rejoin the European Union. Specifically, Scotland needs it. They've always needed to be part of the EU. And the whole big Trump, betrayal that was the Brexit situation was Scotland had voted for independence 2 years before Brexit referendum happened. And they said, no, Scotland, don't leave us. You need us to be in the EU. So Scotland said, okay, we will not leave the UK because we want to stay in the EU. And then 2 years later, they said, we're leaving the EU, by the way, guys. And Scotland voted, I believe, like 90% or 80% to stay in the European Union. So this whole time, for this whole, 10 years, almost 10 years at this point, Scotland has been sitting around going, we really got shafted completely by England, mostly. It was England who voted to leave. And now, John Swinney, who's the current, what is he called?
Blame
the first
Tories.
minister.
Blame the Tories. It's all their fault, man.
For sure. But the first, John Swinney, the first minister of Scotland, is now saying they need to rejoin the EU because Glasgow and a lot of other places a lot of places in Scotland are really suffering. That's the only future for them. So, The First Minister described the 2016 Remain campaign as in the past. Successive SNP governments, this is from Joe Scotting on the National, Scotland. Successive SNP governments have staunchly opposed leaving the EU, with the party making Scotland's return to the bloc a major campaign point in its drive for independence. Swinney is expected to say it's time for Scotland to think big, taking aim at economic issues facing the UK, from increased borrowing costs and turbulence in the financial markets. In his speech, he will say the biggest challenges facing Scotland is its aging population, stressing the need for a migration system which fills gaps in the labor market and support public services. Wait a minute, somebody supporting immigration? I don't know.
In Scotland, where they threw everybody out generations ago.
They didn't want the Scottish in Scotland, so they kicked them out. So get out of here. We want to replace all of you people with English people. And then nobody wanted to move to Scotland. Scotland is still 10% of the total population of the UK. So not even half. Because they're pretty big. Scotland's pretty big, but the Highlands are not very livable. So half of Scotland isn't livable. Hence,
I could live there, man. I could live there.
Yeah, I would live there too. But I'm just saying you can't build like a whole city on a cliff edge, so to say.
True.
It would look cool, but it wouldn't be good structurally.
Although the Romans built a highway all the way up to Scotland,
Yeah,
all the
they
way
did do
past
that.
Hadrian's
So-
Wall. Yeah.
In recent years, nothing has impacted migration in Scotland more than the disastrous decision to leave the EU, he said. And the current dominant political narrative at Westminster is only making matters worse, impacting businesses, stifling growth, and making it more difficult for our NHS to recruit staff. If we are to make the most of Scotland's economic opportunities, we need an immigration system that understands that Scotland is different from the UK as a whole. But ultimately, Scotland is a European nation, and I believe that our future lies within the European Union and that rejoining the EU should be our clearly stated goal and national mission. The First Minister is keen not to retread old ground in regard to Brexit debate and will stress that for all its folly, Brexit has happened. Instead, my wish is that we turn our eyes to the ground that lies ahead, determine and choose a new path and a different course. Simply put, remain was the past. Rejoin is Scotland's best hope for a more prosperous future. Swinney will then criticise the UK government's economic position. We urgently need a new direction for the UK government if we are to ensure that Scotland's economy performs at its potential. I believe it is time for Scotland to think big so we can act bold. He will add, our energy potential is one of our greatest opportunities. If our energy wealth results in supply chain in Scotland in manufacturing, research and development, results in lowered energy prices for households and businesses, economic paradigm shift becomes possible. Of course, Scotland does have small access to some gas and oil, as well as access to wind farms, which they, I think, have been building for a long time. And since Brexit and since the previous Remain campaign or whatever, where they remained in the UK, they have been trying to build a more independent Scotland through their own economic and trade decisions, so that they can maybe open a path to rejoin the EU. And it will take some time for them to actually focus on that, because, of course, since they're focusing on all the other problems, it's hard to actually focus on a big transition to, like, the EU, for example. In other news, let's talk about the Netherlands, which is having its own governmental problems, of course, because they're running a 3 to 4 party coalition, which includes some leftists and also some far right people. It's all over the place, and the State Commission is warning that discrimination and racism calls on the Dutch government to do more to combat this discrimination in public services. This is not happening structurally enough at the moment, and this is the second advice from the Commission to the Ministry of Interior and the House of Representatives. This is from NOS. At the request of the House, the State Commission was established after the benefit scandal. This time, discrimination by the government in particular was examined. The Commission had previously found that discrimination in the Netherlands occurs structurally everywhere in society. You mean the people who traded slaves for money have structurally embedded discrimination? Dutch people like to think they're above it all, but so do Americans. A lot of people want to think we've moved past that. We don't discriminate. We're an equal society. If you keep telling yourself that, it might come true, but you still have to make the effort to do that as well. The committee points out to politicians and ministers the effect of their behavior. When politicians and ministers make implicit or explicit discriminatory statements about groups in Dutch society, this contributes to the image that it is justified to treat people unequally, the advice states. Discriminatory government actions undermine the rule of law and have harmful consequences for individuals and society. Currently, action is mainly reactive, because many government organizations have insufficient control and insight into the effects of their actions. Instead, the committee points out that discrimination and racism violate the Constitution. Moreover, it costs society a lot of money. The recovery operation after the allowance affair has already cost 9 billion euros. Last year, the government also had to reserve 61 million euros for compensation for students who were discriminated against by the DUO during the check on the non-resident grant. The DUO is basically student finances, and some people were getting denied student finances. Now, I remind you, going to school here is maybe 2,000 euros for like undergraduate degree. It's not that much for a whole year, right? That's a year of tuition. But still, some students do need debt relief, like, being able to afford their books or afford whatever, being able to travel, stuff like that. And some people were getting flagged as non-residents, which means they weren't able to get any money from the DUO because they're being discriminated against. The State Commission warns that this will not be the last large-scale compensation operation if the government does not drastically change its actions. Discrimination is not an incident, but a structural problem within the government, it concludes. The committee makes 3 proposals to improve the government's approach to discrimination. First, it proposes to introduce a discrimination test. This can be used to see which decisions and procedures may cause discrimination. The municipality of Arnhem, DUO, and Customs have already done this voluntarily. Furthermore, the committee advises the central government, especially the Minister of Interior, to drop a plan to tackle discrimination in public services in the long term. Finally, MPs and ministers should set a good example for taking discrimination seriously when making laws and policies. Civil servants who warn that certain policies may encourage discrimination should be rewarded for this. The House of Representatives will debate discrimination by the government on the 29th of January. The State Commission will issue its advice expeditiously so that the House of Representatives can include that conclusion in their debate. Should we stop discriminating against people? Yes. The answer is yes. You can't say all Africans are dangerous. There's a lot of countries in Africa.
Right.
So that's just
South Africans are dangerous. Just look at South Africans. Just look at Elon Musk. He's dangerous.
No, yeah, South Africans. Well, that is the stereotype South Africans get, that they are dangerous. But that's my 2 stories. On to yours.
Right on. Okay. Well, no good stories here today in the United States, fortunately, unless you love really bad weather. Take my glasses off to cut down the glare. Although I can't really read now, but hey, let's go with it anyway. This is from AP News, Michael Casey, but it's a big story in the United States, especially if you live in the South and you're not used to snow. You might be going, what's that stuff falling from the sky? Or just blowing around in my face. Snow really doesn't look like it's falling from the sky most of the time. It just looks like it's there, like it's part of your life. It's in your face. Anyway, residents across the country from the northern plains and the tip of Maine are bracing for dangerously low temperatures as tens of millions of residents along the East Coast contend with a thick blanket of snow and more snowfall in the forecast. Winter storm warnings issued by the National Weather Service were in effect in parts of mid-Atlantic through Monday morning, and warnings began in New England on Sunday afternoon. Heavy lake effect snow is expected in western New York State Monday through Wednesday morning, with 2 to 3 feet possible in some areas, including Oswego along Lake Ontario. Of course, lake effect snow doesn't extend very far, maybe a mile or 2 from the lake. After a while, it dissipates. Mark Chenard, a meteorologist with the National Weather Service in College Park, Maryland, projected that as many as 70 million residents will be under some kind of winter storm warning in the coming days. Sunday snowfall is just the start of the chaotic week of weather. Much of the eastern seaboard will be enduring some of the coldest temperatures this winter. An area from the Rockies into the northern plains will see colder than normal weather over several days, with temperatures forecast to drop between minus 30 degrees Fahrenheit, which is minus 34 Celsius. It's kind of where it evens out, huh? To minus 55 degrees Fahrenheit. Minus 55 degrees. Don't go outside when it's that cold. You will die. On Monday, sub-zero. That's going to happen today. Sub-zero wind chills are forecasted to reach as far south as Oklahoma and the Tennessee Valley. Sub-zero wind chills. When I say sub-zero, I mean sub-Fahrenheit zero, not sub-Celsius zero, which is not quite as severe. But sub-zero wind chills in Oklahoma and Tennessee. Imagine we lived in Oklahoma. That little house we were living in had no insulation. We'd have been sitting in front of the stove. Minnesota residents were urged to wear appropriate clothing and carry a survival kit for travel. Christy Rollwagon, great name, Christy Rollwagon. That's her extra name. Rollwagon, roll. Director of the Homeland Security Emergency Management for the Minnesota Department of Public Safety urged motorists to drive with a full tank of gas and a fully charged cell phone to keep in touch with loved ones. It's not something we haven't experienced before. It's just a good reminder that it does get cold in Minnesota. Minus 55 is pretty goddamn cold. Meanwhile, temperatures in Washington, D.C. are expected to dip into the 20s, which is Fahrenheit, which means about minus 7 Celsius to 1 Celsius, with wind gusts upwards of 30 miles per hour, which is 48 kilometers per hour, Chenard said. The forecast prompted President-elect Trump's inaugural ceremony to be moved inside the U.S. Capitol Rotunda. That's a good thing. Nobody wants to see that crap out in public. Yeah. Yeah, it's called a little. Yeah, exactly. What a little bitch. Be like the guy who got pneumonia and did his speech with his jacket off. William Henry Harrison. Yeah, be like that guy. Have balls of steel like William Henry Harrison and die of pneumonia 30 days later. Like earlier this month, the latest cold snap comes from. Like earlier this month, this latest cold snap comes from disruption in the polar vortex, the ring of cold air usually trapped about the North Pole. The cold air will moderate as it moves southward and eastwards, but the central and eastern U.S. will still experience temperatures in the teens and the 20s on Monday and Tuesday, Chenard said. The mid-Atlantic and Northeast will also have highs in the teens and 20s, and lows in the single digits, and below 0 degrees Fahrenheit, or minus 18 Celsius. And wind chills below 0 Fahrenheit, of course. Unusual mix of snow, sleet, and freezing rain. The colder temperatures will dip into the south earlier this week, whereas many 30 million people starting Monday could see a wintry mix of snow, sleet, and freezing rain. The unusual conditions are expected to stretch from Texas into northern Florida and the Carolinas. Impacts are expected during Monday and Tuesday night in Texas, and then spreading across the Gulf Coast and Southeast on Tuesday. Snow is forecast for New Orleans on Tuesday. New Orleans.
Everyone knows New Orleans, the winter wonderland.
Oh, yeah, that's right. When if people are taking sleds down Bourbon Street, then we have a story, right?
That would be wild.
Frigid air, I want to see it. Frigid air combined with low pressure system over the Gulf is behind the storm, which could bring heavy snow just south of the Interstate 20 corridor across northern Louisiana and into Mississippi, in a mix of snow, sleet, and freezing rain near Interstate 10 corridor from Houston to Mobile, Alabama. Of course, Houston and Mobile, Alabama, also on the Gulf of Mexico. I mean, Houston's a little bit removed from it, but Mobile is right on the Gulf of Mexico.
Yeah.
It's surrounded by water. It's Mobile Bay, for crying out loud. Anyway, Louisiana Governor Jeff Landry on Saturday issued a state of emergency ahead of severe weather, urging residents to prepare and keep watch on the forecast. And hopefully Louisiana has snowplows. Unlike Texas, and I found out the hard way, does not own a snowplow. And that was 10, 15 years ago. And I'm pretty sure they still don't, because I seen last winter or the winter before a picture of Texarkana, which is on the border of Arkansas and Texas. The Arkansas side was plowed. The Texas side of the street was not plowed. Because Texas doesn't own a snowplow, and they won't even borrow one, apparently. I don't know. I don't understand Texas. I never did. But there's your weather for the story for the week in the United States is, it's cold.
It's very cold.
Anyway, back to you. Yeah.
Yeah. Of course, the weather in Europe isn't exactly going as expected either. It's, there's not been a lot of sun. That's for sure. That's normal. There's also just not been a lot of cold weather either. It's been hailing way more here in the Netherlands than it ever has. The wind has been stronger. I don't know if that is a cause of climate change, but the wind has been stronger. There's way more. According to Robert, who grew up here, he grew up in the Netherlands. He's born here. He does not remember there being this many frequent windstorms when he was growing up, right? Where it's like, don't leave the house. And also, it's become so common that back then when there was a windstorm, when he was younger, right? It'd be like, don't leave the house. Nobody leave the house. Stay inside because you'll get blown away. Now, windstorms are so frequent, people don't care anymore. They don't say stay inside or, stay safe. They're just like, whatever, another windstorm. Just get your kite and just fly, whatever. Because it's become so common. So, yet again, our weekly, monthly reminder that climate change is real. The world is ending. And you need to get prepared for that. Because nobody else is going to help you. The government does not care. They want to make money. That's what they want.
And if you live near the coast, that's right. If you live near the coast and you think, oh, the government's going to bail me out, my house gets destroyed, they're going to stop doing that at some point. They're going to say, we're not going to do this anymore. Good luck. Because, hey, there's too many of these disasters for us to do anything about.
Yeah.
Oh, man, it's out of hand.
The problem with
course,
something becoming common is
it
it becomes something you have to take care of yourself instead of something
right.
a greater...
And all we care about in this country is cheap gas. All we care about. Cheap gas. Cheap gas. Oh, we get cheap gas. We just got cheap gas. Idiots.
And where are you driving with that gas? Nowhere.
Idiot, but I'm just telling you. Yeah, if you think snow in Mobile, Alabama is normal, I got some news for you. It's not. And it isn't happening without the polar vortex being torn apart by the polar ice caps melting prematurely or whatever.
Torn apart.
Hey, it's all a big fun ball of fun. That's what this planet is, right? If you're flying across the cosmos and you see Earth, you go, hey, that looks like a ball of fun. You're right. It is a ball of fun. Anyway, I'm sorry. I'm overly interrupting your story.
No, you haven't. We're still talking about yours. But yeah, that's the weather from the U.S. and I guess a little bit from the Europe.
Got you a little clip. You won't have to edit.
Okay.
And there you go. It's only
now we've got
43.
some good news, at least coming from me, which is the ceasefire. Now, if anybody wasn't paying attention over the weekend, we did finally get a Gaza ceasefire. Israel hopefully will stop bombing civilians and Palestinian people can finally, have a day where they're not worried about getting bombed. This is on Euronews.
Yeah.
According to a list provided by the Palestinian Authorities Commission for Prisoner Affairs, all of those released are women or minors. That's right. Israel has freed 90 Palestinian prisoners and detainees more than 7 hours after the 3 Israeli hostages were released by Hamas and returned to Israel. A large bus carrying dozens of Palestinian detainees exited the gates of Israel's Offa prison in the early hours of Monday morning, just outside the West Bank city of Ramallah. According to the list provided by the Palestinian Authorities Commission for Prisoner Affairs, all those released were women or minors. Israel detained them for what it said were offenses related to national security, being Palestinian, I think, right. From throwing stones to more serious accusations like attempted murder. Throwing stones is a threat to national security. Okay. More like person.
What a coincidence that the ceasefire takes effect right when Joe Biden's leaving office. Way to go, Netanyahu.
But Trump will take credit for it. Don't worry about it.
He could have declared this last summer and it could have affected the elections. Thanks a lot, Netanyahu, you piece of shit. I just want to interject that.
Yeah. Well, like I said, and Trump's going to take credit for it because it happened this year, right? And nobody can tell time.
Right, exactly. Wait, and again, he could have done this last fucking summer. Anyway.
The release comes on the second day of a 3-phase ceasefire, which started Sunday morning, which was the 19th of January. The truce was supposed to start at 7:30 a.m. Central European Time, but was delayed until 10:15 Central European Time after Israel refused to implement it. It hadn't received the names of the hostages Hamas was intended to release. Phase 1 of the ceasefire will see Hamas release 33 captives over 6 weeks in return for hundreds of Palestinians being held in Israeli prisons. At least they weren't killed by bombs, I guess. Hamas released 3 Israeli women on Sunday, Romy Gonen, Emily Damadi, and Dorin Steinbrecher, who were handed to Red Cross staff in Gaza City before being transferred to the Israeli military. All 3 are currently receiving treatment in a hospital in Tel Aviv and are said to be in stable condition. Israel is expected to release 30 to 50 Palestinians in exchange for every Hamas hostage. Phase 2 of the deal covers steps towards a permanent end to the fighting in Gaza. It would see Hamas release the remaining hostages, with Israel agreeing to free around 1,000 Palestinians. The Israeli military will also complete a full troop withdrawal from Gaza during this phase. That's great. Can they also take all those people who stole houses out too? Third and final phase covers Gaza's reconstruction, with Hamas expected to hand over the bodies of the hostages who died in captivity in return for a plan for rebuilding the Strip from Israel. Hamas triggered the war in October 2023. I really wouldn't call it a war. It was a massacre. With its cross-border attack in Israel that saw 1,200 people killed and 250 others taken as hostages back to Gaza. And thousands, tens of thousands have been killed in Palestine, by the way. Israel responded with a devastating offensive that has killed 46,000. So, you can probably do the ratio there, but 1,200 people were killed with 46,000 Palestinians killed in return. That's a terrible ratio, a criminal ratio. According to local health officials who did not distinguish between civilians and militants, they say women and children made up more than half of the dead. The conflict has destabilized the Middle East and sparked global protests, as well as highlighting political tensions inside Israel. I mean, there's always been tensions in there. The only thing good that can happen to Israel is Netanyahu to not be in power, because he's just a criminal. That's what he is.
He is, and
against humanity.
I still don't know what Israel got for waiting 6 months for this. I have no idea what they got from it, but I bet you it was absolutely nothing.
No. But this was from Gavin Blackburn with AP. And it's your good news, but it's still gotta keep your guys' eyes on the prize, okay? Don't let the propaganda
don't trust
get you.
Netanyahu to hold the peace because he doesn't have a. There's no moderating force in the White House anymore.
No.
You have a guy who's 100 foursquare behind Netanyahu. 100 pushing him, right? Whatever he does is just fine. Yep.
And you have to really keep your eyes on this propaganda, because they will try to sell you this idea that everything's better and everything's getting better, but it is not getting better and it's not better. I mean,
even all you Americans that stayed home and didn't vote because of Gaza, good luck. That's all I got to say.
But also, like, if you look at the TikTok drama right now, right? They banned TikTok for not even 24 hours, I think. And supposedly, I've only seen a screenshot of this. I have no idea if this is a real screenshot, but I have seen a screenshot from a friend who, when they logged back on TikTok, when it got unbanned, it said the words, "Thanks to President Trump's work, TikTok is now unbanned." So the propaganda is already starting. Trump is already taking credit for things that are not important, like having TikTok available is not life or death scenario. But that's how you get the people on your side. You get a bunch of small things. We're lowering gas prices. We're making chicken eggs cheaper. Milk is 2 cents. You get the small things, you collect them all together, and then you convince the mass populace, this guy is really great. And you need to watch out, because that's when, fascism can set in and suddenly you're in a dictatorship. That's all I have to say. That's my warning for you guys all out there, especially in the US, because it can happen in Europe too. Of course, Europe, it happens more with fascism.
We're a fascist
very experienced with the fascism here in Europe. But onto your story.
We are operating at the whims of corporations already. Yeah. So there we are. Anybody that goes to the wall defending TikTok, I'm like, why? Because it's an app to use on your phone. Who gives a shit?
Yeah, like because you do like to doom scroll for 10 hours a day.
If you get your news from, if you need TikTok to get through life, get a life. And honestly, people get their news from TikTok. It's pathetic.
Honestly, my issue with TikTok, or my understanding with TikTok, is that this is, for a lot of people, their first time their social media dies. Right? At the millennial, there have been countless. I can think of 5 right now. LiveJournal, MySpace, Vine. I can't think of 5. Never mind, I lost them. But there's been so many social media deaths. Yeah. I mean, Facebook spiritually is dead, right? All the boomers on Facebook, not the young people.
Facebook. Mark Zuckerberg is trying to turn Facebook into Twitter by not fact-checking anyone. So basically, never mind. Report somebody for bullshit. They're never going to get removed from Facebook because, hey, you can just repeat bullshit endlessly and people take it as news. Of course, the reason we got Trump in the first place is people getting their news from Facebook.
Yeah.
It's like, you're dumb if you get your news from Facebook. You're an idiot.
And look, it's from this show.
You're an idiot. You're not trying.
We do post these videos on Facebook.
Whatever. I don't give a shit. What is it? Mark Zuckerberg to come to my house? Fucking kick the
No,
door
I'm
down?
just saying.
Come
I'm
on
just
in.
making a joke that we post this on.
I'm just
Unless it's
saying,
from
yeah.
our show,
Yeah,
don't trust
I'll
the
post it
news
on-
on Facebook.
Do we post it on Twitter or Blue Sky?
No, you can't. That's pointless. There's not video watching websites. In my opinion.
Oh, okay. Well, anyway, yay, Facebook. I mean, I still use Facebook, but it's just to communicate with people I don't have phone numbers for and so forth. But
Yeah, that's why it's the boomer website. I'm just saying, from my perspective, the reason why Gen Z or whatever are freaking out about TikTok and they're all crying or whatever, they weren't crying. It's because it's the first time on social media has died, right? All their work that they put in, you know, their 10 years worth of TikToks they've put on TikTok. Oh, it's all gone now. Yeah, welcome to the internet. It can all disappear. The internet isn't real, guys. It's not physical. All you need is a server to die, and it's over. This is your lesson.
Joe Biden said he wasn't going to enforce it anyway. He wasn't going to enforce it anyway. Joe Biden said, and he said if it's up to Trump if he wants to enforce it. It looks like Trump's not going to enforce it either. So there's no ban. So it's no ban if nobody's doing anything. So what's the fucking problem? Of course, if you like people just hacking your phone, you have never had a problem with it in the first place, right? I'm just saying. That's the reason of the controversy, because they're worried about malware getting on everybody's phone. Where the Chinese government's got all your stuff.
China. No, not China. The big C word. They're scary and they're propagandizing our populace. We're supposed to be propagandizing our populace, not China. They might have other thoughts than what the American government wants them to think.
Our scary thing is we have phones that are hacked by private corporations, right? The danger is when
those are American corporations.
Government, I don't know. Yeah, don't tell me what the difference is. I don't know what the difference is between a private corporation hacking you or a government hacking you. It's still somebody hacking you. But for some reason, we're supposed to be comforted when a private corporation hacks us. I have no idea why.
That's because it's American and they speak the same language and they're not communists, you see. It's all part of, it's just an extension of the Red Scare.
We don't even care if it's a German corporation necessarily, I don't think, right?
Yeah.
Maybe. I don't know. It's just we trust rich people more than we trust the government, which is run by rich people. It's just the stupidest fucking shit in the fucking world.
I mean, I don't know if you heard about this,
I love corporations.
When TikTok was getting banned, a bunch of those users moved onto an app called Red Note, which is a purely run by the Chinese government supported app, right? A Chinese app. There's only Chinese people on it, right? Mostly. And they went on there and then they started complaining about there being so many Chinese people. And some people discovered China is a very diverse country that's very big, with different people in it, with different colors and different languages and dialects.
Right.
There's idiots right now, maybe even your neighbor, who don't know that China is a country with different people, with different thoughts. My mom didn't know that showers existed in the UK. There's people out there who don't know these things. They don't live in reality. They don't know that the whole world is the same. There aren't humans living in mud huts anywhere, and if they are living in mud huts, there are very small populations of people living in mud huts, okay? Most of humanity is on the same level of civilization, but America, for some reason, likes to think it's the only person who invented shampoo, the only country that's invented democracy, and it's the only country that has freedom. And there are people who need to wake up and realize that's not the truth.
Many, many countries are totally caught in their own xenophobia, not just the United States. We're not the only one out there passing fascist governments. Well, is it my story yet, or were you doing a story?
I have finished talking.
Hello? Okay, so we're on to my story then. That's just terrible. Okay, AP News. This is a story. At least 80 people killed in northeast Colombia as peace talks fail, official says. Bogota, Colombia. More than 80 people were killed in the country's northeast over the weekend following the government's failed attempts to hold peace talks with the National Liberation Army, a Colombia official said. 20 others were injured in the violence that has forced thousands to flee as Colombia's army scrambled to evacuate people on Sunday, according to William Villamazar, governor of North Santander, where many of the killings took place. Among the victims are community leader Carmelo Guerrero and 7 people who were sought to sign a peace deal, according to a report that government ombudsman agency released late Saturday. Officials said the attacks happened in several towns located in Cantambo region, near the border with Venezuela, with at least 3 people who were part of the peace talks being kidnapped. And then there's a bunch of captions for pictures, or depressing pictures of refugees. I love when refugees take their chickens with them. That is so, it's almost heartwarming, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm on the road, but I've got my chickens. And
I also have
definitely
egg.
got some eggs to eat.
Yeah.
That's right. So you got these people, they have their bags, they're sitting in a soccer stadium, and they have chickens. Anyway, just describing the picture, and there's a poor displaced child, which is depressing, and another poor displaced child in a picture. Thousands of people are fleeing the area, with some hiding in the nearby lush mountains or seeking help at government shelters. We're caught in the crossfire, said Juan Gutierrez, who fled with his family to a temporary shelter in Tibu after they were forced to leave behind their animals and belongings. We had no time to grab our things. I hope the government remembers us. We are helpless here. Colombia's army rescued dozens of people on Sunday, including a family and their pet dog whose owner had held a pack of cold water against the animal's chest to keep it cool as they evacuated by helicopter. Ah, that's sad. Defense Minister Ivan Velasquez traveled to the northeastern town of Cucuta on Sunday, where he held several security meetings and urged armed groups to demobilize. The priority here is to save lives and guarantee the security of communities, he said. We have deployed our troops throughout the entire region. Officials also prepared to send 10 tons of food and hygiene kits for approximately 5,000 people in the communities of Ocaña, and Tibu, the majority of them having fled the violence. Cantambo needs help, Vala Mizar said in a public address on Saturday. Boys, girls, young people, teenagers, entire families are showing up with nothing, riding trucks, dump trucks, motorcycles, whatever they can, on foot to avoid being victims of this confrontation. The attack comes after Colombia suspended peace talks with the National Liberation Army, or ELN, on Friday, the second time it has done so in less than a year. Colombia's government has demanded that the ELN cease all attacks and allow authorities to enter the region and provide humanitarian aid. Displacement is killing us here in the region, said Jose Trinidad, a municipal official in the town of Convención, located in North Santander region. We're afraid the crisis will worsen. There's another caption of people displaced. It's always the families with several small children in these pictures. Trinidad called on insurgent groups to sit down and hammer out a new agreement so us civilians don't have to suffer the consequences we're suffering right now. The ELN has been clashing with the Cantambo with former members of the Revolutionary Armed Forces of Colombia, or FARC, a guerrilla group that is disbanded after signing a peace deal in 2016 with Colombia's government. The two are fighting over control of a strategic border region that has cocoa leaf plantations, fighting over the drug trade. Of course, the FARC, I used to go to Colombia all the time, and that was the big boogeyman, the FARC. And they signed the peace deal in 2016, so supposedly the people who didn't like the peace deal are the ones that are still fighting. In a statement Saturday, the ELN said it had warned former FARC members that if they continued to attack the population, there was no other way out than armed confrontation. The ELN has accused the ex-FARC rebels of several killings in the area, including January 15th slaying of a couple and their 9-month-old baby. Assholes. Army Commander General Luis Emilio Cardoz Santa Maria said on Saturday that authorities were reinforcing a humanitarian corridor between Tibu and Cucuta for the safe passage of those forced to flee their homes. He said special urban troops were also deployed to municipal capitals where there are risks and a lot of fear. The ELN has tried to negotiate a peace deal with the administration of President Gustavo Petro 5 times, with talks failing after bouts of violence. ELN demands include that it be recognized as a political rebel organization, which critics have said is risky. That political rebel organization, I don't know, it sounds like they are, I guess, I don't know. Anyway, there's your violence in Colombia. Hopefully it doesn't spread because we need more stable governments in the Western Hemisphere. We've only got about 12. So the more stable governments we have, the better. Anyway, there's your story from Colombia.
Yeah, so
back to
from
you.
peace talks going good to peace talks going bad, unfortunately. That is the turn of the world. The world keeps turning.
Stupid people are trying to control the drug trade. Oh, yeah.
Just, legalize drugs everywhere. Then you won't have illegal drug cartels, They'll just be legal.
Right. You won't import illegal drugs. We can just buy them from a pharmacy. We can just go to the pharmacy. Give me some Coke. Yeah. It used to be in the old days, you could just get cocaine at the pharmacy.
That's true. It was in your Coca-Cola as well.
That's right. It was in your Coca-Cola. That's right.
I mean, funnily enough, most sodas these days originally started out as some sort of concoction to cure some sort of illness.
Bayer Pharmaceutical developed heroin. They did, and they were selling it to children. That's right. So back in the day, you could get heroin from the grocery. Yeah, give me some of that heroin. My kid needs to sleep. All right, here you go. That'll put Johnny to sleep. Oh, yeah. Anyway, back to you.
All right. In more bad news, are you paying too much for concert tickets? Well, it might be getting worse. And Eamon Ford on The Guardian is trying to find out where all this money is going. Because if the prices are increasing, who's getting all that money? The news that Oasis were to reunite sparked a wave of euphoria across the nation at the end of last summer, but the nostalgia balloon was quickly punctured by the discovery that the tickets, initially priced at £148, which is still crazy, had suddenly leapt to $355, more than double, due to dynamic pricing, a great strategy that Ticketmaster uses to steal your money. The outcry quickly sparked a new debate about what constitutes a fair price for gig tickets, with the band themselves fanning the flames. Liam Gallagher told those belly aching about the lack of transparency to shut up and buy kneeling-only tickets for $100,000 instead. 100,000 sorry. Yeah, 100,000, yeah. Dynamic pricing, where the cost rises in real time, is in lockstep with demand, is hardly new. Parallels are often made with the surge pricing used on budget airlines and taxi booking apps. Although in the case of gig tickets, dynamic pricing means the price can rise in the few seconds it takes for consumers to get their booking. Bruce Springsteen was caught up in the issue in 2022 for his US tour, as were huge acts such as Beyonce, Harry Styles, Coldplay, and Blackpink for the UK shows. With costs rising across a number of industries and people pay pockets being squeezed to the breaking point, it seems reasonable to ask what truly constitutes a fair price. So, Eamon has spoken to a few ranges of voices across the live music business, ticketing companies, agents, promoters, and artist managers to understand not just how prices are set, but also what costs need to be covered by gig revenue. Average ticket prices globally rose 23.3% in 2023 to $130.8 to which is £104, according to data from the live industry trade publication Pollster, a figure that is almost 10 times the national living wage per hour, currently 11.44, but soon to rise to 12.21. The Pollster number is, however, heavily skewed at the top end by huge acts charging huge prices for their huge shows. Go down the food chain from Oasis and Taylor Swift, who grossed more than $2 billion last year, to mid-sized smaller acts, and it becomes painfully clear that concert tickets are not the cash bonanza of common presumption. Looking at London, which has the highest concentration of concerts and venues in the UK, tickets at 5,000 capacity O2 Academy Brixton typically cost between £40 to £50 before booking fees. A ticket for the 2,300 capacity O2 Forum in Kentish Town, North London, can land between £22 to £40. A ticket for the 150 capacity Windmill Pub in Brixton could be as little as £6, but is rarely over $12. How that revenue is broken down is complex, but the acts you are paying to see only ever see a fraction of that. Ticket prices all have barely moved in the 15 years I've been doing this, especially on grassroots levels, says Matt Hanner, founder of the booking agency Runway, who looks after emerging acts such as Aussie post-punkers Cold Wave with tickets that see them at the Prince Albert in Brighton in March costing £11. Tom Schroeder, an EVP of live agency Westerman Music UK, and his roster including Fred Again and Ray, both of whom are now at or approaching arena level. Having run a 500 capacity and 700 capacity venue myself, the margins are tiny, he says. In the vast majority of cases, people are losing money. Phil Hutchinson, founder and CEO of mobile ticketing company Dice, set his company up in part to help smaller acts and independent venues sell more tickets and understand how perilous the economics are. Mid-size and small concert tickets are actually underpriced from what you get, he says. US tickets are typically 50 to 60% higher than in the UK. The US feels a bit too expensive, and in the UK it feels like fans could pay a little more. A music manager speaking anonymously explains that for at least one of their acts who can play to 1,000 people in London, the cost of all their shows far exceeds their fees, even with a minimal crew. At the smallest level, show losses can be substantial as they rarely sell out. As a promoter, you can easily lose £1,000 on a 100 capacity gig, says Hanner. You're all looking for acts that are going to move through the venues and get to the point where they are making serious money, which really only happens at 5,000 capacity venues onwards. Similar to streaming, you have a lot of people who are streaming to 5 people, and they're in a way losing money because they could probably be spending that time, I don't know, working at a freaking gas station, probably be making more money. But then you have the people who are getting 800 people watching your streams, and then they're making millions. They really are making millions. When acts get to that arena stage, they don't suddenly become trouble-free. Overheads rise sharply, and that has to be reflected in the ticket prices. On bigger shows, it's hard not to spend money on production, as the audience has a level of expectation, and there's a level of investment by the artist to having to do that. Brian, co-founder of 11 Management, which represents Blur, Gorillaz, and Bastille, among others. I mean, Blur and Gorillaz is the same band. Don't tell anybody. When spending on huge production rises, I mean, it's a different genre, but it's literally like that. I'm pretty sure the singer of Blur is the singer of Gorillaz. Acts also have to ask for higher guarantee fees to cover them. When acts are initially booked, they are offered a fixed fee by the promoter, but they may also share in ticket income if the show sells beyond expectations. So say you are expecting to sell 800 tickets, but you do sell all 1,000 tickets, you can get a bonus. Unless arena and stadium shows completely sell out, promoters could still lose money. As the commonly quoted industry figure goes, profits are really only made in the last 10% of ticket sales. As a result, some acts and promoters feel compelled to jack up prices to cover for themselves. For American acts playing arenas in the UK, tickets will be well in excess of £100, says Ian McAndrew of Wildlife Entertainment, manager of Arctic Monkeys and Fontaine's DC. Americans generally spend more on production and look for higher margins of profit. They can argue they less commonly come into the country, so there's a premium to see them. There are exceptions. Paul Keaton's most recent tour has seen the former Beautiful South man. They stripped back arena shows, enabling him to charge £35 a ticket. Most nights sold out in his planned show at the OT City Hall, Newcastle in December, was upgraded to the city's much larger utility arena. A bare bones production, however, would not work for acts such as Dua Lipa, Bring Me the Horizon, Beyonce, or Kendrick Lamar. Their shows at arenas and stadiums need to be astound. But as shows scale up, so do associated costs. McAndrew explains that an arena show requires at least 6 articulated lorries to transport everything, as well as a crew of around 45 people, from roadies and riggers to tour managers and sound and lighting engineers, who all have to be bussed or flown between shows. The actual profit won't be as significant as you might think because the costs are quite high. Ticket prices are usually set by promoters who take the bigger risk, typically working on a 20% of profits after venue hire and the act's guaranteed fee. The promoter will normally speak to the act and their agents about the proposed price, see if they do not feel it's not excessive for their fans or drastically out of step with the market. If they do not sell all the tickets, the act still gets their fee, but the promoter absorbs the loss. The conversation between the agent and the artist as to what the ticket price should be, said Byrne. But what about the people selling tickets? Laura Kramer, director and CEO of We Got Tickets, says ticketing companies may be the public-facing part of businesses, but their cut of overall ticket sales is very slim. We Got Tickets, for example, takes a maximum of 10%. It has to pay the transaction charge on every ticket purchase and provide tools for event organizers such as customer support and marketing, as well as handling refunds or rescheduled dates. Our revenue is our booking fees, says Kramer. Without the booking fee, there's no independent ticket agent. While there have been legal changes in the UK whereby ticketing companies have to be fully transparent about precisely what extra costs, such as handling and transaction fees, are added to the ticket price, the business as a whole is not always transparent. There are shadowy shares of additional revenue split between ticket companies, acts, and promoters. A megastar may negotiate part of the extra fees around tickets, classed as a rebate. The 2024 Which study claimed such additional fees can add 25% to the price of tickets. There are also tales of acts securing this cut of venue bar takings and even the car parking. Oh, you made money from the bar, you made money from the car parking. I need some of that money because you wouldn't have a show without me. And they take some extra money. And of course, there is the dynamic pricing, which is where this article began, an issue that only affects acts getting blockbusting guarantees anyways. It has been justified by the live business as an attempt to neutralize price gouging on secondary sites. McAndrew feels dynamic pricing has a role in the industry. The role must be conditional. It has a place and it's limited, and you're essentially serving a customer who is happy to pay a premium, such as a corporate group buying a VIP ticket for entertaining. Kramer, meanwhile, is fundamentally opposed to dynamic pricing. I don't think it belongs in live music at all, she says. It's heartbreaking. Acts complaining about paltry payments from streaming, which followed on from the collapse of the more lucrative CD business, were instructed to pay live more in order to make up for any shortfall in their income. But simply playing more shows is not a financial panacea, and there are only so many times they can play your local city or town before even they, the most loyal fans, start to feel like they're being squeezed. Ubiquity is the scourge of scarcity, the very thing live performance thrives on. Live economics are proving to be imbalanced as those of streaming. Top 1% make fortunes, everyone else is just getting by. In fact, argues Schroeder, tickets are underpriced generally. People don't understand the cost of touring to causes and how, in the vast majority of cases, people are losing money. Fans may feel concert tickets cost too much, but they often cost the acts far more. So there you go. We talked about this, I think, a couple months back when we were talking about Taylor Swift tickets and other ticket pricing issues, but there's the full disclosure on what goes into your ticket prices. So when you're complaining to Taylor Swift about how her tickets are, £200 or whatever, it's probably not even her fault. And it's probably, if you want to have cheaper tickets, you need to not go in there for the spectacle, right? Go to those closed, 100 people shows where it's very intimate, and you'll get a cheap ticket easily. It's those big explosions and fireworks and pyrotechnics and people flying through the sky on freaking wheels. That is going to cost you a lot on that ticket price.
Yeah, the problem with concert tickets is always, if you really want to see a band, you will pay the ridiculous price, right? You will. It's been proven time and again. We're suckers for that stuff, aren't we? We are.
Kendrick Lamar right now, right? He's doing a tour that is supposedly never going to happen again. You will never see this guy do this particular show ever. It's a one-time, 1 year only, and then a bunch of people are like, well, there goes my bank account, because the hype is there, right? I will never see this show again. They're not filming it. It's not going to be on film,
And next year he tours again.
Yeah, but it's going to be a totally different set list and not the same stuff, and it's not going to be the same as that initial show.
Believe me, I'm the guy that went to the Rolling Stones farewell tour in 1989. So hey,
bye Rolling Stones. Wait a minute, they just released an album 2 years ago. Wait a minute.
Right. As we all know, Rolling Stones completely stopped touring in 1989. Right. Anyway, but I still went to the Steel Wheels tour because it was their last. Anyway, at least I didn't pay ridiculously exorbitant prices.
I'm sure by inflation standards you might have paid a lot, but...
Nah, I don't think I could afford to pay a lot. I was still poor. I was still living in San Diego, and actually I was still in the Marine Corps. I just got out. Anywho, this day in history, as we move forward, and this day in 1778, British explorer James Cook landed at Waimea on the Kauai Island, becoming the first European to visit Hawaii. And about a year later, he was killed by Hawaiians when he tried to kidnap their chief.
Sounds deserved to me.
U.S. President John. Well, yeah, but I mean, James Cook did do a lot of exploring. He wasn't totally useless, you know. He did a lot of
rediscovering is what I would call it. Right? I found this place. This place has been here,
right?
Dude.
Who was mapping those parts of the ocean? Nobody was, right? So anyway, it was important. He wasn't just some throwaway guy in history just because he was an invasive colonizer.
I mean, he should have just stuck to mapping. Why did he go try to kidnap someone? That's all I'm saying.
Well, he had to land and get food in places. You know, they had to get fed, right? 1801, U.S. President John Adams nominated John Marshall to be the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court of the United States. That happened in 1801 on this date. In 1892, moving way ahead, the first official basketball game was played in Springfield, Massachusetts by YMCA students of the game's inventor, James A. Naismith. So this day in history, basketball was invented at the YMCA. So every time you sing that song, YMCA, you're actually celebrating basketball. Didn't know that, did you?
Anyway, is that a lyric? We play basketball at the Y. I don't think that's a lyric. They should have said it though.
Yeah, it's fun. It's fun to dunk at the YMCA. There you go. 1930, Buzz Aldrin, the second person to walk on the moon, was born in Montclair, New Jersey. 1945. I mean, he was in the same capsule as Neil Armstrong, but I think they flipped the coin or something and said, hey, all right, Neil gets to go. 1945, U.S. President Franklin Roosevelt. There was a lot of news is going to be inauguration stuff. So 1945, U.S. President Franklin Roosevelt was inaugurated because this is the inauguration day of the president.
Yeah, who would have thought? You should just say that.
For his fourth.
All the presidents were inaugurated, every single one. Today. Yeah.
But we're going to talk about the historic ones, okay? Just the historic ones. President Franklin D. Roosevelt was the first person inaugurated for four terms at this day in 1945. This day in 1961, President JFK made his famous, and so, my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. That's my best Kennedy. Now let's go get some chowder. 1962, Robinson Jeffers, one of the most controversial American poets of the 20th century, died. In 1971, a nationwide strike in Great Britain's postal system began. 1981, the Iranian hostage crisis ended when Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini released 52 American hostages who had been held hostage for 15 months. Of course, this was collusion with Ronald Reagan. Ronald Reagan had the hostages delayed be released until he got to be president. And he was actively negotiating to keep the hostages there to make sure Jimmy Carter didn't get reelected. So yeah, Reagan was a piece of shit. 1993, Belgian-born actress Audrey Hepburn, who we're celebrating today, who created unforgettable film roles and as the epitome of sophistication and glamour while paradoxically bewitching audiences and critics with her sprightly mannerisms and elfin charm, died in Switzerland. On this day, she died in Switzerland. Now, again, a big credit for Audrey Hepburn, who's, I don't know, again, Audrey Hepburn, as we may have covered on the show, was lived in the Netherlands from 1939 to 1945 during the war.
She was a spy for the Dutch Rebellion too.
And she worked for the undergrounds as a child. As a child, she worked for the underground, passing notes, passing information. So Audrey Hepburn, definitely a hero. Oh, you got my clip, right? I know I probably mentioned it, but that was like an hour ago, I think. Anyway, in 2001, hard to believe Audrey Hepburn's been gone since 93. Wow. 2001, amid a corruption scandal that sparked mass protests, Philippine President Joseph Estrada was ousted from office in 2007. He was convicted of plundering, but was later pardoned. And 2017, Trump was inaugurated. 2021, American Democratic politician Kamala Harris became the first woman to serve as vice president of the United States as she took the oath of office. And since she's an honorable person, she let Trump become president. She could have just said, screw it. I'm going to do what Mike Pence could have done. And said, hey, I'm going to do protest. Right? That would have been funny, huh? And the January 6th thing. In 2010, our featured event is another presidential inauguration. In 2009, Barack Obama sworn in as president. On this day, in 2009, Barack Obama was sworn as the 44th president of the United States, became the first African-American to hold the office. Our featured biography is Federico Fellini, Italian filmmaker, born January 20th, 1920, so he'd be 105 today, Fellini. He died in 93 at the age of 73, October 31st, in Rome, Italy. Other birthdays today: Aristotle, Socrates, Onassis, Greek businessman and second husband of Jackie Kennedy. Onassis, of course, Jackie Bouvier. 1920, Federico Fellini, we did that one. Buzz Aldrin, we did that one. Did you know it's David Lynch's birthday? He just died the other day. Well, it's his birthday today. He would have been 79. He was born in 1946. American filmmaker and screenwriter. Go see Eraserhead or Mulholland Drive or Elephant Man or Twin Peaks. Just watch all the Twin Peaks variations. 1956, Bill Maher's birthday. So there's your birthdays today. Those are your days. What day is it today? It's National Butter Crunch Day. Looks like a peanut brittle with flaky covering on it. Butter Crunch, National Butter Crunch Day. It's Martin Luther King Jr. Day. It's the third Monday in January of every year. The United States observes Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday. He was born on January 15th. And it's National Disc Jockey Day. So your favorite guy that never got a skill in life and ended up as a disc jockey.
Well, while throwing slaves and DJs out there, what the hell?
I'm just saying that. I could be a disc jockey. I just spin records. What's the big deal? National disc jockey, underappreciated. There are some really good disc jockeys out there.
Yeah, it is a skill, especially doing reads and stuff over radio.
Everything is a skill.
Yeah,
true.
Sure.
But yes, definitely a skill. National disc jockey. Appreciate the disc jockeys. Throw shade at them. That's my problem, right? You can appreciate them.
It's because you're a radio technician, so you're on the other side, you know.
It's jealousy. It's absolute jealousy on my part. I wish I could make money doing that. That's what it is. National Cheese Lovers Day. So it's National Cheese Lover. If you don't love cheese, man, you ought to be examined. But National Cheese Lovers Day. That's all your days. That's all your history. Everything for this day, January 20th, 2025, on Before Cheese.
And that's right. This has been Allison here from one of the cheese capitals of the world. Netherlands people love their cheese. The Dutch, Netherlands. And we will see you. And that's been Raj from the west coast of the U.S. And we will see you tomorrow for Good Tuesday. We will cover some good news. The good stuff that's been happening this week. Because yes, it was a bit of a downer. There wasn't much good news other than the One Piece treaty going up and One Piece treaty going down. And we will hope to see you for that. So make sure you are subscribed to the Ali and Raj channel. Turn on that notification bell. And of course, like this video and comment down below if you have any opinions on, I don't know, Trump presidency or TikTok being banned or Colombia. Let's talk about Gaza. Everyone loves talking about Gaza.
Yeah.
Or maybe Scottish independence. Should they leave the UK and rejoin the EU? Or are you against that idea?
Yeah,
let us know down in the comments below.
We definitely talk about that. And the thing about Scotland is Scotland would leave England and England would be poorer because of it. Because the UK really doesn't make anything anymore, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the economy is a service economy. So what are they bringing to the world? Not a whole lot. So Scotland at least has, the North see oil fields.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's do
That's the end of the show.
mic drop thingy.
We will see you tomorrow for Good Tuesday Newsday, and here is our mic drop moment. Good old Audrey Hepburn. She probably loved
more
cheese
than
as
just
well.
a pretty face. Oh, she loves cheese.
Hello, I'm
Hello.
Audrey Hepburn.
I can tell she's Dutch, by the way, in case you're wondering
in which
how she speaks.
She's Belgian, actually.
Yeah, same thing.
Born in Belgium.
And I play a water sprite.
Okay.
Don't. Of course, she knows French.
À l'époque, je me suis arrêtée justement pour mes enfants, parce que j'étais toujours loin et ça me rendait très malheureux. Alors j'ai plus ou moins cessé de faire des films pour voir grandir mes fils.
Of is dat
Helemaal niet.
Nee.
Helemaal niet. Ik zou het heerlijk vinden om heel interessant te mogen zijn en te zeggen, oh, het was zo warm en ik viel iedere dag flauw, maar het was niet zo.
Het was niet zo.
Het was heel warm en dat vond ik juist wel fijn om dat, tenminste dat te kunnen zeggen.
Well, that's a very, like, Dutch accent, I would say.
Danke Ihnen von ganzem Herzen, dass ich diesen wunderschönen Abend mit Ihnen verbringen durfte.
Probably had to learn German to get along, huh?
E anche perché riempito di tutte quelle
For 5
facce
years.
così gentili questa sera e vorrei
Italian is out of nowhere. That's like nothing like any of these other languages.
Right?
Signora,
Italian based on Latin, as Spanish is too.
But she does know French, I suppose. But French for me is so much different from Spanish and Italian.
Right.
Like Italian and Spanish are way closer as a language.
Well, Portuguese next.
Be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and notify buttons, and follow our other channels, Toxic Alley, History of Gravy, and Scratchy Old Records.